So I think there are lots of ways that people can start getting back into business. And I think, and I keep saying, you have the biggest audience of your life right now, the biggest. Use it constructively, positively.
Hey guys, it's Matt Haycox here, and I have got with me today Kelly Hoppen, who probably needs no introduction to most of you, but for anyone who's not familiar with Kelly, she was born in South Africa and moved to London when she was 2. Art and design very much in the family blood. Her father worked in the fashion industry. Mother had a gallery in London, exhibiting artists and photographers from all around the world. So Kelly's developed a passion for interior design, starting when she was only 16, when she had the opportunity to design a family friend's kitchen, and throughout her career she's designed for a whole host of celebrities, household names, and also to many of you, you'll recognize her as a dragon from, I think, was it two seasons you did on the Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
So Kelly, thanks a lot for being our most famous face to date.
Thank you for having me. Sorry it took me so long to technically get on. I'm just so awful with technology. It's really pushing my boundaries, this lockdown.
Well, I was going to say, if we don't come out of lockdown as technology wizards, then we've learnt nothing during this time.
I know.
Listen, I'm conscious that we haven't got oodles of time, so I want to get on with some of the meat and some of the questions. But I guess just before we do, can you maybe just flesh out your journey a little bit more, for maybe people who aren't totally familiar with you? Just
so
how you went from designer to household name.
16 and a half, I started my business. I left school. My father sadly died when I was 16. And so I just decided that I wanted to leave school. I was very dyslexic, was very badly bullied at school. So I wanted out. And I always had a passion for design. I just loved looking in people's homes. I was always looking in magazines. I came from a very artistic family, so I was sort of surrounded by it. And so I was offered to do a kitchen for my stepfather's friend, which was a complete disaster from start to finish. But then I had a girlfriend who was having an affair with a racing driver who said, would I do up his home? He happened to be incredibly famous. I did the house, don't know how, but I found the builders. I managed to do it. And, in those days, it wasn't about going on Instagram and finding stuff. I was literally in a car, going out, sourcing and networking with people. So from a very early age, I was quite entrepreneurial in terms of being quite fearless and just so passionate about it. And from that job, I got so many other racing drivers, Grand Prix racing drivers, and then actors and various people. And that's how the business started. And so it was very organic. And sometimes people say, oh, you became famous very quickly. I didn't. I really worked hard. And I think with all businesses and people starting out, it takes a lot of hard graft. And I still do it every day today, 43 years later. So that was sort of the journey of sort of how I got from A to B. And along the way, I was approached by Terence Conran to do my first book, East Meets West. I then won the Andrew Martin Award. And I suppose that gave me the confidence that I was okay in what I did. And once I had got that confidence, I didn't need to be reassured and feel like I couldn't do it. So I believed completely in what I was doing and created this style out of my imagination and travel, because again, there was no Instagram, there was only magazines and paper. And I'm really grateful that I came from that era, because I think we don't use our imagination enough. And I designed to music, dinner parties, talking to people, clothes shopping, reading, all of those things still sort of feed me. But I suppose I'm kind of quite strange in that I love design and that's my passion, but I also love the complexity of business and how you can work in business and plan things. I'm always sort of ahead of myself like that in terms of I want to be ready always. That's kind of my nature.
Tell me, where would you see the parallels between design and interior design and business? And I guess I was just thinking about it a minute ago when we were joking before we started recording. We'd just been looking at my pink chairs, and you were talking about the fact that, you know, ultimately, you know, it's about what the client wants and making the client happy. And I know a lot of times, you know, clients will go to an interior designer who's got a very particular style. I mean, it's not often you see a designer who does all kind of wildly different things. You know, like people are known for this look or that look or the other. But I mean, I guess being customer centric, yeah, must be, you know, one of the big points of success in design, which I guess is very much the same in business. But, you know, what other kind of parallels and draws do you see?
Well, I think that, you know, what I do is I am employed to give advice. I'm employed for what I do, and I think that, you know, in all business, you have to listen. You have to listen and you have to understand what it is that you're doing. So if I'm going into your home and you're my client and you've asked me to come and help you, it's not for me to tell you what to do. I'm there to have a conversation with you and to understand what it is that you want. And I think in the same way in business, when you're in a meeting and you're doing a deal or you're trying to build a business, it's about listening to what people want and understanding it and not having that ego attached to your shoulder. And it's about unraveling. I always think every day is about unraveling. It's, you know, I start my day as a clean sheet, and what is it that I have to do, and what am I going to find? And when I find it, how am I going to invent something new? How am I going to create something new? How am I going to ask the right questions? If I don't get the right questions, how do I go in and ask again so that I can get them? And I think it's all about understanding what people want, isn't it? It's about trying to get inside people's heads. So whether it's design or whether it's about a business, and I think it's all about planning. And I think that as long as you're authentic in everything that you do, there is a way to get from one end to the other. And I think with a lot of people today, especially in this lockdown, where they've lost their jobs and they're trying to figure out what it is they can do, as long as you don't start from a point of fear, which a lot of people do anyway, generally, and you can start from a clear head and try and decipher in yourself what it is that you want, then I think you can work with someone else. I don't think if you go in with a confusion, you ever get the right mixture. And remember, when I started at 16, 17, I had no reputation, I had no name, I was only just starting off with a style. So I was offered jobs that really were not my style, but I still engaged in it and tried to maneuver it into a way that I thought was stylish. Obviously, today people come to me for that style. But I think that in every single job that I ever do, I just try and look at it as an opportunity to do something great. And I think sometimes people just have to take a bit more time to do that. And I think we're a community of rushing, wanting to get to the finishing line, get the money in, you know, what's the next one? I think you have to compartmentalize every single project that you do and give it 100%. I'm not someone that gives 150% because it doesn't exist. It's 100%. That's what you need to give somebody. And you give them your all, and then you go to the next project that you're doing, in my case, and you do it again. And each thing needs to be individual. But I think in business, there are certain things that you know. And I think maybe with age, I've got wisdom and I'm much calmer. I'm not saying when I started, I didn't have a big ego, because I did. And I made many mistakes along the way. But I've learned that if you take time to work things out and think about them clearly in a very balanced fashion, I think you can definitely get what you need to achieve in everything that you do, whether it's design or business, whether it's a dancer, whether it's a gardener, a plumber, seamstress, whatever it is, you can achieve it. But you have to have that clear mind and belief that you have been asked to do it. And that's the first box that needs to be ticked, because I talk to so many entrepreneurs who say they go into meetings feeling that they're not worthy to be there. And I go, why is that? you've been asked to go to that meeting, or if you're going to the meeting, you think you're able to do it. So shelve that immediately and go in, not with a big head, but go in with excitement and enthusiasm, and have the knowledge that you can give them what they want, and probably a lot more, because that's your trade.
Well, talking about entrepreneurs who deserve to be there because they've been invited in there. That's a nice lead into talking about the Dragon's Den. So, I mean, how did that all come about for you in the first place?
Well, my agent called me up and said they'd like to do a screen test with you, and my stomach just sort of sank. And I'd watched the show and loved it, so I did the screen test, and they said, "Look, she's great. We want to have her do this." And right up to the minute I was sitting in the chair for the first time, I was literally freaking out. And I remember Duncan sort of giving me some words of advice, because I knew Duncan and Peter before. And actually, first of all, it's a TV show. So you have, you're told to be there as a dragon. But it's also entertainment, but it's also business, and you're also parting with your own money. So it's all about instinct with me. And I think the great thing about the 2 years that I did it, I was so different to every other dragon that was there. And I remember Deborah once saying, that she would want to be out. She didn't, she would listen to the pitch, and I would come in and talk, and she'd already thought, this is not for me, but I would say something that would make her think in a different way. And it happened vice versa. And the thing I loved about the Den, and the reason I still watch it, is the dynamics between all of the dragons, and how we all play on each other's emotions to try and get it, excitable.
I was going to say, I mean, do you find that you guys as dragons there, benefit each other as much as, obviously, as much as the entrepreneurs have come, looking to land one of you guys? I mean, do you find that because as dragons you probably all come from different backgrounds, different skill sets, different expertise? Do you find yourself kind of working well, learning from each other, even if you're
I mean, completely. I mean, I learned a huge amount, and I wish I knew as much about the show now as I did when I did it. It's one of my things that I would, I'd love to sort of give it one more shot, because I think that actually I think that you learn a lot from it, and I think that we all learned a huge amount from each other. And there's a huge amount of ego in that room, let me tell you, in terms of it's very, very competitive as well.
And tell me, because obviously, I mean, you say you're a fan of the show as well. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an avid watcher, but I do watch it from time to time. And one of the things I find, let's say, unrealistic or irritating from an investor's perspective is the fact that I just don't think we get to see enough of maybe the negotiation, the nitty gritty and stuff that goes on.
Okay, well, let me tell you something. Each pitch takes a minimum of 2 hours, okay, which is probably 3-4 minutes on TV, and we have to do 100 and I might get this wrong, 120 to 150 pitches in 21 days.
Okay.
Right. So you're sitting in a chair. So and it's as irritating for me, and I'm sure the other dragons, because when you see the edit, you're like, what? That's taken out of context, that's TV. So the negotiations could, they have to try and edit it to fit it all into how, I think it was 11 episodes or something per show. But it's very hard. And sometimes, you'd be starting at, I would be up from 5:30 doing an hour in the gym, having breakfast, then you've got hair and makeup, then you sit in the chair, and you're sometimes in the chair until 8 o'clock at night. So it's hard for them to edit it.
How much of an expectation is there on you guys, I guess, as a whole panel, to actually be making investment? I mean, obviously, I know they want to see investments, but do they ever get unhappy with you that maybe not enough investments have been made? Or
well, no, I mean, I think we all want to invest. I think it's slightly more irritating for us, or certainly for me, I'm not going to talk for everyone else, that when you can't find something you want to invest in, and you come to the end of a day of filming, you're like, I've got cash in my hand. Like, bring me something I want to invest in. You know, I think it's more that than the other way around. You know, I mean, everyone invests heavily in it, and it's hard work. You know, for me, it was hard to sustain all the investments and run my big business, and I hadn't actually factored that in when I said I would do it, because they all take a lot of time. And but it was great, and I'm obsessed with the American version. So if anyone's watching, watch Shark Tank, because it's amazing.
Well, I was about to say, yeah, I personally, from a viewer's perspective, I mean, I say a viewer as a business person and investor myself, I love the Shark Tank because I feel we get to see a lot more of the deal making and maneuvers that go on behind the scenes, and I don't know how much leeway you guys get on the UK one, but I love Kevin O'Leary. And he always does, let's say creative debt / quasi.
Yeah, brilliant. And I love the fact that on the American one, you can be out and you can come back in. I love that, like, the jeopardy of that. So I'm not a great flyer. I get very scared flying. So I download all of them. Sometimes on a trip, I'll watch like 8 of them back to back. And I actually, I learn a lot from some of those negotiations. So you're absolutely right. I think maybe the time that they get to film is longer per series. I don't know.
Do you get that? Do you get that degree of, let's say, investment style latitude on the UK one, or is it just very simple? It has to be an equity investment for a percentage return.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make your money back. And, like with Skinny Tan, it was a really good investment for me. And what I loved about the investments was actually helping a brand grow, change their packaging, introduce them to all the people and get them to the next sale. And that for me was far more exciting. And that's why I'm saying, if I could go back in time and do it again, I would know more about that. But yeah, I mean, it was fun, and it was really hard work, I have to say. And you're thrown into the public eye like nothing, like literally overnight. So it's quite life-changing.
When I was doing a little bit of research for this podcast, actually, I came across a few quotes, or a few bits of press. I forget where this was from, but it says here, Kelly Hoppen predicts that only 4 of her 11 or so Dragon's Den investee companies are likely to make it work, and has said that she has had a wake-up call after receiving several calls from startups she invested in that have struggled to get off the ground.
Really? I don't think I said that.
You don't remember that?
No, because it's not true. I think that's just press writing. Right.
Oh dear, no, because I was going to use it to talk about maybe some of the problems that you find with investees, which you probably don't anticipate during the actual filming or before you've got involved. And I guess I talk about I often get asked, what do I look for, when I'm investing in a business, and I've made my mistakes over the years, investing in people who are probably far too early stage and needing much more hand holding, and I always say that now I very much know that I, as much as I like the prospect of being involved with startup companies, that the reality is they're probably too early stage for me, and I need people who already know how to do most of running the business. I can be the fuel to the fire.
I think though, I like to invest in young people. That was one of my things that I wanted to do. And there were a few that were brilliant, and there were a lot that weren't. And, you can talk to a brick wall sometimes over and over, and you can give people advice. And if they're not prepared to take it, that can be very frustrating. I even had one investment, I won't say who it was, who spent the money before we'd even started. It's like little things like that you don't anticipate. Somebody literally sort of taking 60 grand and spending it. And then you're like, really? How are we actually going to get this business off the ground? So, yeah, I mean, if I do investments outside of Dragon's Den, but it's not really part of my business that I invest in things, then I would think very carefully and make sure that I felt that I could really help them. I'm very good at mentoring people and getting them to a point where they can get to start their business. I love that. And I'm very good at looking at businesses and almost turning them around just by looking at them and saying, but if you did this and did that and did that, I think that would work better. And then they'll come back to me and go, oh my God, that was gold. How did you know? And I say, I don't know. I can just look at it and see. But that's my fascination for business, which is separate to what I do in design. I love looking at businesses and seeing how the potential. I love the lockdown now in terms of being able to think outside the box in business and how business is going to work, and coming up with ideas as part of the an ambassador for the great, which I've been for many years, thinking about things that a different way of living and how businesses can survive and how they can move forward. I love that kind of thought process. You know, it's part of who I am. I never really switch off.
You just made me think, by the way, when we talk about mentoring people or you know, people spending the money before they've even got it. And if you like the Shark Tank, have you ever watched The Profit?
No.
You've not heard of it either?
No.
So the Profit's another US based one, but it's not a panel of people. It basically follows just one guy, allegedly investing his own money, a guy called Marcus Lemonis.
Okay.
And he, his business, he runs a business called Camping World in the US, which I guess is their version. It's like a Costco for camping and fishing and other stuff. But there must be 4 or 5 seasons in, and it's kind of like it's almost a cross between a Dragon's Den. And do you remember when Duncan left Dragon's Den and he went and did that? He did a show about fair, like investing in Scarborough. He did something about fair.
Yeah.
It's almost like a combination of the two, where he finds the businesses to invest in, pitches them some kind of deal, which gets very Kevin O'Leary style normally, and then you normally follow him through some process of actually making the changes, because quite often it's a retail business where the money will be spent on a front of house refurb and process changes, and his thing is it's always the 3 P's: people, process, and something else. I'm obviously not
look it up. Brilliant.
But you should definitely check it out.
Thank you.
So again, you mentioned obviously lockdown a minute ago. I mean, just to kind of contextualize this for anyone who watches this or listens to this after the fact, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 12th of May, 7 weeks into lockdown. So if you want to contextualize any stories or info you're hearing, that's where we're at. I mean, Kelly, how's lockdown, corona, etc., affected your businesses and I guess your attitudes, thought process and plans for the future?
Well, it hasn't affected my business, and I'm very grateful for that, because a lot of my work is in Asia. So we are as busy as we've always been. In fact, we're busier. So my entire staff are all employed, working from home. And when I say I'm forward thinking, I had prepared for this lockdown 4 weeks before it happened, and my staff thought I was mad, but I was watching the news incessantly. I had alerts coming up, and I decided I was going to put into practice, regardless of whether it was going to happen, that everyone would be able to work from home if somebody said you're working from home. So from day one, we were able to have a business running, and it's been phenomenal. I mean, my team have worked so hard, and it's really made me think about the next phase in my business, in that a lot of people can work from home. It's just more, what's the word? Not exhausting, because I'm not exhausted, but it's more difficult as a boss to run a business remotely, because I'm very close to all my staff and their well-being, and I want to take care of them. So every day I write to them. We have Zoom. I mean, Zoom calls is, it's quite tiresome, because normally you'd walk next door and talk to someone and it's done and it's spontaneous and there's that whole thing. But you know what? We're doing brilliantly well. I'm thrilled that we are supporting many businesses in the UK, whether it's curtain makers, upholsterers, fabric companies, furniture companies, and we're shipping millions of pounds worth of product out. So I feel really good that I'm able to support these people within our business, but it's kind of extended family. And so I'm lucky that I'm busy. I think for a lot of people, it's just horrific. And I think it's the unknown. I think that I'm not going to get political here, but I just think that, everyone can scream and shout at politicians, but I think it's such a new virus that we're learning every single day. For me, the only thing that makes my heart hurt is that I can't be with my daughter and my grandson and my family and my mother of 84. And that worries me. But I'm so busy every day that I get to the end of the day, and that's when I then speak to them and everything else. But I don't think it's going to go away. I think until we get a vaccine, we will not be living a normal existence. And I think people have to start thinking outside of the box and thinking how they can run their businesses and have collective businesses. So, you know, my big thing, which I talked about on my Instagram, which I do every day, I give a talk, which has really helped me as well. I sort of did it as a one-off, and it became, you know, people were asking for more, was, you know, say there are 5 people, one's in marketing, one's in graphic design, one's in PR, one, you know, whatever it is, you know, join forces so that one client could employ 5 different people from different companies, rather than trying to start a company again at a time like this. So I think there are lots of ways that people can start getting back into business. And I think, and I keep saying, you have the biggest audience of your life right now, the biggest. Use it constructively, positively, you know.
Yeah, I've been very much saying the same thing. You know, with a lot of people who've been messaging me about you know, wanting to have gotten started on YouTube or wanting to have got started on Instagram, Facebook, and I've been very much saying that, you know, now is the only time, in never mind in our lifetimes, in probably generations of lifetimes, that we are going to have literally every eyeball in the world sat gagging to consume content. You know, whether it's watching a live like this or watching you tell your jokes or do your TikTok videos, you know, whatever it is. You know, if you don't start doing stuff now during lockdown, then you never will. You know, other people,
you've lost an opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people saying, "Oh well, I'm getting my thoughts ready so that when lockdown's over, then I'll do it." Listen, if you're not doing it now, you're never doing it.
Absolutely. I know. I keep saying to people, if you haven't tidied your closets out and you haven't done your garden when you come out of this, shame on you.
Well, I just to wrap up with that. I mean, if there was a, you know, one takeaway for, you know, for all the people at home, then, you know, who've been, you know, wanting to start a business or wanting to make a change, you know, I guess other than just saying, you know, get on with it and do it, you know, any specific advice or information you can recommend to people right now?
Well, I think that instead of, you know, sitting on social media looking at what other people are doing with envy or trying to just look at stuff and then get depressed, be constructive. You know, what are the 4 things that you're good at? What are the 4 things that you're passionate about? What are the 4 things that you know you could do good doing? And then do your research. You know, and actually reach out to people, because again, it's not just about the audience. I think it's about the fact that people are listening, and people are in a very different mindset right now, that they are willing to listen. They're in a much more, they're more available to listen to what people have got to say. Not everyone, but the majority of people. And I think that the opportunities are there, but it's how you speak to people. And, you know, I think you have to go in with a real sense of authenticity, a real sense of passion, a real sense of wanting to do something, and actually being inquisitive and trying to put something together and slowly put it together. So as you said earlier, you know, a lot of people are sitting with their thoughts. No, thoughts need to become reality. If you sit with it always in your head, you'll never get to do anything. I've seen that so many times where people have got brilliant, cracking ideas. 3 years down the line, they've done nothing with it. And a lot of that is from fear of thinking they're going to fail at it. Don't. You are going to fail a lot. We all do. But you just pick yourself up, and a true entrepreneur has always got another idea and is always going to go out. Eventually, something will hook. I always use the analogy of a great DJ. If he puts the right music on, you watch him hooking in everyone onto the dance floor. If it's bad music, everyone's at the bar. You know, you've got to have something that somebody thinks, that's a good idea. And from that grows something else, and create mind maps on paper, because they're always quite good to show how from the very small idea you can do another another circle with another circle with another circle, and you just see how it all kind of grows back to the center, but linking everyone in together. And as I said, don't be frightened to ask people and ask for help. I think it's really relevant right now.
Awesome. Well, listen, Kelly, that's fantastic. I've loved hearing the story, loved hearing the advice, and I know we've been getting a few comments down the side. So I know a lot of people watching at home have enjoyed this, and I'm sure the people who listen to it when we release it on iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else you can listen to this will love to hear you too. Again, just before you go, for anyone who doesn't follow you on social, etc., just give yourself a quick shout out so people can listen to a bit more.
Yeah, my Instagram is Kelly Hoppen. It's really simple. I'd love to hear all your comments, and if you've got any business questions, you can always write. I do try and answer everything that I can, and we're also on Twitter. So it'd be lovely to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot again, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.